Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to Wobble Enjoy Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. This week I'm a bit under the weather, so I'm just going to present this to you as an audio only edition of the Ace High Tip Show. Let's get stuck into it. Round 6 starts from McDonald Jones Stadium on Thursday Night Football. The Knights versus the Roosters. Newcastle are approximately $1.57 favourites. The Roosters are $2.40 outsiders. There's a good reason for that, being that James Tedesco and Sam Walker are out of this game. That means that Connor Watson plays in at 5'8", with Luke Keary as the halfback, and Joey Manu plays at fullback, with young Punga playing on the wing instead. The Newcastle Knights, they are unchanged themselves. If you think about last year, there was a game very, very similar where the Newcastle Knights dropped the ball against a Sydney Roosters outfit that were down its stars, and the Newcastle Knights were at full strength. I think it was around mid-June or thereabouts. It was where the Origin stars were out, and even Kalen Ponga was playing in this contest. I'm very nervous to tip Newcastle here, despite the Sydney Roosters being down Walker and particularly Tedesco, but that forward pack is still intact. I kind of want to take the Roosters here, and I know that they really dropped the ball against the Bulldogs last weekend, and the Knights, they are improving week on week, but the Roosters have a pretty decent record in Newcastle, and I'm not quite there with the Knights. In last year's loss to the Roosters around Origin time, where they should have put the Roosters away, kind of has scarred me, so I'm going to go the Roosters. It's a real roguish sort of a tip, but I'm going to go the Roosters to win this game because Daniel Tupou, he's lining up on Tom Jenkins. In last year's game, Manu played at fullback and he absolutely exploded. And seeing that Keary is now going to be the sole half for the Roosters in this game, and the forward pack for the Roosters, once they got going against the Bulldogs, they were hard to contain. Surely they don't put in massive brain explosions like they did last weekend. I don't know, there's just something keeping me off the Newcastle Knights in this game, even though all the signs do lead to the Newey Knights. But I'm going to go the Sydney Roosters in the upset, 1-12. Friday Night Football, and game number 1 emanates from Amy Park in Melbourne. The Storm versus the Bulldogs. Melbourne are approximately $1.10 favourites, whereas the Bulldogs are sitting outsiders at $7, and I think that's a bit big on Canterbury Bankstown, seeing that the team lists for the Dogs, there's not as many outs as we were all anticipating. But before we get to the Dogs, there is only one change for the home team, and that's Tepai Moeroa is in and Jack Howarth is out. For the Bulldogs, Stephen Crichton plays fullback. Blake Taft suffered a concussion last weekend. That means Josh Adokar returns, which pushes Bronson Sherry to the centres, with Connor Tracy and Jacob Carraz being the other centre pairing. We've got Viliami Kikau, who has been named. He was expected to miss maybe 6+ weeks. There were even fears that he fractured his tibia as well. And the same thing can be said for Max King too. Max King was feared to have been ruled out of this game, but he's going to be playing in the contest, and Chris Patolo starts in jersey 10 on his back. The back row for the Dogs is Josh Curran, Jamin Salmon in the lock position, and Viliami Kikau. There is a debutant for the Bulldogs. His name is Bailey Hayward. He's a blonde, red-headed young man. Sort of looks like Chris Keating from back in the day, or resembles Chris Keating, I should say. And he impressed in the trials, did this young Hayward. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And Farmasili plays for the Bulldogs as well. I spoke in the last game about a result that happened last year between these two clubs. Last year, the Dogs went down to Melbourne and got the upset, or maybe it was the year before, but it was very recently where the Dogs upset the Storm down at Amy Park. And this team list is a little bit better than what we were all anticipating, even though Taff is still out. And it gives us a fair dinkum good look at how Stephen Crichton will go at fullback. But the defence in that second half, in that upset win against the Roosters, was diabolical from the Bulldogs. And the Storm will not allow those chances. The Storm have been very impressive to start 2024. Even though I thought that they probably were not the better team in last weekend's win, I still got to go the Melbourne Storm, and I think I'll be safe in assuming 13 plus. The main event on Friday night is from Suncorp Stadium, the Battle for Brisbane, edition number 3, the Broncos versus the Dolphins. The Broncos are the favourites, sitting at approximately $1.30, whereas the Dolphins are sitting at $3.25. The Brisbane Broncos, they have a couple of big names back in, one being Reece Walsh is back at fullback, a huge inclusion. Jock Madden plays at halfback, whereas Ezra Mann is the 5'8". And for the Dolphins, Tessie New plays at centre because Herbie Farnworth did his AC and he might be out for at least a month. There was talks that maybe Valence Tavare might be in over Tessie New, but it is New that's going to be playing centre this Friday night. And both benches are kind of strange, especially the Brisbane Broncos. For the Broncos, Smoothie, Hetherington, Willison, that's fair enough. They've kept Tristan Saylor as jersey 17, so it is a small bench that the Broncos are utilising this Friday night. Whereas for the Dolphins, you've got Josh Kerr, Anthony Milford playing his first game this season. You've got Jared Wallace and Mark Nichols as well. So it's just strange to see Anthony Milford in, and that's because I believe it's Max Plath that is still out with suspension, not Offahengawi, Donahue that is out with suspension and or injury. The Broncos down their stars and then down Adam Reynolds halfway through the game, nearly pipped the Storm in Melbourne. Really impressive. The Dolphins, while I realised that they had their injuries as well, and also including Felice Kafusi is not playing in this game against the Broncos, the Dolphins, they still gave the Tigers a bit of a sniff. The Tigers gave them a bit of a fright, a fair dinkum fright, and I just don't think the Dolphins will have the defence to stop Brisbane. They might have the attack to match it with them for a little bit. This is a rivalry game, so you don't know what's going to happen, especially after the last two games, or the first two games, I should say, between these two clubs. But I'm going to go the Brisbane Broncos to win this game 1-12, being that the young prince of Brisbane, Reece Walsh, is back. We move into the Super Saturday games, and game number 1 on Super Saturday, in my opinion, is the match of the round. New Zealand Warriors versus the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles from Go Media Stadium. The New Zealand Warriors are sitting at approximately $1.40, $1.50, whereas you can find the Sea Eagles at $2.50. That is great odds about the Sea Eagles. That is a lot of meat on the bone. There are changes for both sides. Minimally for the Sea Eagles, we'll start with first. Ben Trebojevic moves into the centre position. Garrick is out with concussion. That means Corey Waddell moves into the second row starting spot, and therefore it is Ethan Bullymore who comes into the 1-17. For the New Zealand Warriors, Chanel Harris-Tavita is in jersey number 14. You've got DWZ, who's back on the wing, and Kurt Capewell also returns for the Warriors. Now, while the Warriors did defeat Manly in a classic last year, can't eliminate the history from my mind that remains that Manly are the bogey side for the Warriors. I know the Storm have a case for that, but Manly, they don't fear Go Media Stadium at all. They love taking on the Warriors in New Zealand, and that's why I'm kind of shocked that the Seagulls are at $2.50, and why I'm actually starting to teeter a little bit about my tip. It was a solid performance from the Seagulls, but it was an ugly game of footy, and the Penrith Panthers that was probably the worst effort from the Panthers, worst performance from them in 2 years, I would suggest. Whereas the New Zealand Warriors, I think that was their best performance of 2024 so far last weekend in their thrashing win against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. They're getting better every single week, and I think that might have been the victory where it sort of just clicked for them well and truly. I'm going to go the New Zealand Warriors, but I think it's going to be the exact same sort of a game like we saw last year between these two at Mount Smart Stadium. I think it'll be a thriller. I wouldn't be surprised if Manly win. This is going to be a great game. This is my match of the round. I cannot wait to see it, and I cannot blame you if you tip Manly, who have $2.50 about them. Take them now, because possibly, very well should, that market might come in as the days draw closer to kick off. But at the moment, and I'll stick with it, I'm going to go the New Zealand Warriors to win this game 1-12. Now, the second game on Super Saturday is the Eels versus the Cowboys. I will not be talking about this game here because I'm going to be previewing this game on the Parrot Cave podcast with Troy. Can you freaking believe it? I'm making my debut on the Parrot Cave podcast. So I will let you subscribers all know when that is going to be dropping. I'll put the link to the video up as a community post, but I'll talk about this game in depth with the Parrot Cave podcast in the next 48 hours or so. Super stoked, and thank you to Troy for allowing me to come onto his channel. So keep an eye out for that one, guys. I'm going to be talking this game, a full match preview, on the Parrot Cave podcast in the coming days. And the main event on Super Saturday is from a core stadium, the Rabbitohs versus the Sharks. The Rabbitohs are $2.82, the Sharks are $1.43, and it's Judgment Day for coach Jason Demetrio. Apparently, if the Rabbitohs do not win this game, he will be out the door. Looking at the team lists, he's going all out here, but there's some still very strange selections. So Latrell Mitchell has been suspended, and therefore Jai Gray will make his debut at fullback. Young Tyrone Munro will make his first appearance for 2024, so that's awesome to see. And then we get to the forward pack. Damien Cook has been hooked and been named as 18th man. Peter Mamouzelos has been named at hooker, and the interchange bench is kind of strange as well. You've got Shaq Mitchell, Davey Mawali, Michael Cheekham, and Saliva Havili, and you've got someone like a Tallis Duncan that has not been named in the 1-17, which is strange. Looking over to the Cronulla Sharks now, they're coming off a bye and a victory over the Canberra Raiders the week before. Their 1-7 hasn't changed, but a huge inclusion for them is Britton Nikora. He plays starting second row this weekend, but the interchange I find strange as well. Billy Burns in 14, Jack Williams, Talakai in 16, and then Tahapua in jersey number 17. Besides jersey 17, Tua Apua, there's not a genuine prop, which sort of scares me a little bit, because the Rabbits, they're desperate. They're going to have to go all out, and the Sharks, I think in 2024, in my opinion, the teams who have come off a bye and played their very first game after it have been very flat. And though some of them have gone on to win their game, they have been very flat inside the first 20 to 30 minutes of each game. That's just my opinion. So the Sharks coming up against this side, with the Sharks interchange as well, I don't know, I'm just all of a sudden like, ooh, I don't particularly like the interchange that Craig Fitzgibbon has gone with here. However, in saying that, looking at the reserves, Toby Rudolph and Braden Hamlin-Uele are floating around with jersey number 20 and 22 on their backs. So there could be a surprise late double inclusion with both Rudolph and Hamlin-Uele coming into the foray. And I think that would be, if they can, I think that would be enough to put the Sharks over the edge. But at the moment, Jai Gray, apparently he's this young fullback in New South Wales Cup that's just been killing it. I don't watch New South Wales Cup, so I really can't attest to whether or not that's true. But obviously you gotta heed some of it. But they'll be desperate. But surely the Sharks should do it. And it's just the fact they lost to the Tigers and were down early against the Raiders in the manner that they were, just gives me a little bit of a pause. But I'm going to go the Sharks to win this game. I don't know. Margin's a bit weird. I'll go 1-12. Sharks 1-12. Now into Sunday, and game number 1 is from Campbelltown Stadium for the first time this year. The West Tigers host the St. George Illawarra Dragons. The Tigers, they are approximately $1.80, whereas the Dragons are $2 for outsiders. A couple of changes for the Tigers. Seyfarth starts at second row. John Bateman is out with injury. And it's young Justin Natamua who comes fresh onto the bench. For the St. George Illawarra Dragons, it looked like Jack Bird would be injured, but he has been named to play at centre. Hame Sele starts in jersey number 10 for the Dragons, and you've got the likes of a Lowry, DeBellin, and Raymond Fatala-Mariner coming off the bench as well. So that is a very big bench that's coming on for the St. George Illawarra Dragons. The Dragons, again, they seem to have really nice starts and then they fade away dramatically, whereas the Tigers, they're still a team that are impressing on the low end of the scale, if that makes sense, and with all due respect. But they're still trying to find their feet. Therefore, I guess we're all still trying to ascertain where they really are. I'm going to go the Tigers here. They've just shown a bit more consistency, and they showed a great fight to get back into the game against the Dolphins last weekend. I think they were only 2 or 4 points down halfway through that second half, whereas the Dragons I think it's maybe 3 second halves in a row where they've maybe fired one shot and that's it. I'm a bit concerned about their second halves at the moment. So I'm going to go the West Tigers to win this game 1-12. It's a bit of a poo slinger, but then again, it could be a thrilling game because both teams are sort of even in that regard. I do give the Dragons a sniff, absolutely. Zach Lomax is making a huge case to be a New South Wales Origin representative this year. Holy moly, he's playing good footy. But at the moment, I think the Tigers are just playing a little bit more consistency and with a little bit more resiliency as well. So Tigers to win this game at Campbelltown 1-12. And the final game of round number 6 is from GIO Stadium. The third week in a row, actually, the Raiders have had a Sunday twilight game. The Raiders versus the Gold Coast Titans, and the Raiders are about $1.35, whereas the Titans are sitting around that $3.50 market as well. Surprised they're not actually sitting at $4, to be brutally honest with you. For the Canberra Raiders, there are a number of changes. Jordan Rapana is undergoing knee surgery. I don't know if that's his season, but he's undergoing knee surgery. That means young Chevy Stewart, 18 years of age, is going to be making his debut at fullback. So congratulations to him, young man. Absolutely enormous. For the forward pack now, Zach Hosking returns from concussion, which pushes... believe, I can't bloody remember now, Adam Mariota back to the interchange bench, who did an admirable job in the second row last week against the Parramatta Eels. Morgan Smithies remains in the lock position. Corey Horsburgh suffered a groin or an abdomen injury last weekend, so he's out. And in comes Trey Mooney in a jersey number 16. Friggin' enormous inclusion is Trey Mooney. And can you believe he's off contract this season? He doesn't have a club yet for 2025. Someone sign him up quickly before I ring the friggin' Cowboys. And then for the Gold Coast Titans, there's only the one change. Stimson comes out and Isaac Liu comes in. The Titans, they gave us a fright, the North Queensland Cowboys. They gave the Cowboys a fright last week. And that's because AJ Brimson was playing 5/8 for half of the contest. And I really can't believe that Foran has been named anyway, and that AJ Brimson still has been named in the centres. Foran, he was a shot to come back on, but it was evident that AJ Brimson can't play centre anymore. Campbell worked his ass off, and so too did David Fifita, but this Raiders side, they've taken everyone by surprise again, and I think they could win 13+, but the Titans did find a bit of fighting spirit and a bit of character last weekend, so maybe it could be a little bit closer, but that attack from the Raiders, man, was brilliant, and just a shout out to Morgan Smithies, who I thought was ginormous against Parramatta. So I'm going to go the Raiders to win this game 13+. Howdy guys, thank you very much for tuning in once again. I hope you enjoyed the video and hope your team wins this weekend, except for the Parramatta Eels, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, take care, adios.